So alongside Jean, Theon, if you have him, is the other commander that slots into pretty much every single top tier rebel leader formation out there. He's a bowman, which is both ideal and not. It helps that he cannot be countered and therefore he can't do reduced damage to anything. But that also means he can't counter anything himself, so his damage ceiling can be reduced to an extent because of that. But because he's so overstated as it is, it doesn't matter too much. In terms of just passive attack value, his is very high at almost 8,500. His health and defense we don't care about at all. Definitely not for rebel leaders, because he's just never going to be hit. For his skills, his passive abilities are pretty terrible to be honest, especially in a rebel leader context. His first ability is 6,000 bonus damage every 7 attacks. It's free damage, but it isn't that much. The anti-heal is totally irrelevant in this context too. His second ability is entirely useless for rebel leaders. Because of a good formation, no one will die, so it does literally nothing. It can be useful elsewhere, like if he's the last alive in training grounds, but here, nah. And the third ability is just passive prowess, but only for himself. It's a tiny bit of passive DPS increase, but it won't really have too much of an impact on anything. The active is what makes Theon great. It does a decent amount of burst damage, but it increases his attack by an absurd amount, almost doubling what he passively has on the first cast of it, but then it keeps stacking throughout the fight. Now, my Theon is gold, rank 9 and level 60. In this first clip, he's on the front row because the rule of thumb is that when you have a commander you want might recovery on because their active is so good, you put them on the front row so they attack earlier and therefore build might quicker. There are some really mathy overlays here. He casts his active 4 times throughout the fight, and you can see how high this ends up stacking his attack to. It hits almost 40,000, which is just absurd. No one else in the game can even get close to that. Obviously you need to average it out across the fight, and it gives him a value of about 22,000. For context, when we looked at Jean before, her own attack when added to the average value of her active gave about 12,000 attack across the fight. So Theon is looking at almost double that. Obviously Jean has her other benefits of the strategy passive buff, which is basically impossible to calculate the contribution of, and the fact she has 2 heals, but when it comes to doing more damage to rebels, Theon is the best commander in the game, bar none. And if you spend at all, he's a very good investment already, just because he has both leadership and combat rate in the tavern, so even at green rarity for example, will still be insanely good. And that is why Theon is so good for rebel leaders. Always use him if you have him. He's brilliant.